Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Motor City Mad Mouth Show. That's it, loud as can be. The Motor City Mad Mouth. My name is Scott Morganroth, and I am pleased to be joined by longtime coach and cancer survivor John Bonamego. Welcome to the big show, Coach.
Good to see you, Scott. Thanks for having me today.
Oh, you're very welcome, Coach. Let me tell you, when I bring this guy on here, I'm only talking about a guy that's only 9 months younger. And, how do we feel? We know we can cover a lot of ground, a lot of generations, and a lot of stuff. I remember getting wind of you when you were an assistant coach for the Detroit Lions. And, I don't think the other teams really matter to me when I think you're part of the Lions, only to find out indeed, okay, you obviously had a lot of other stops. So you're a Lion guy at heart to me, but obviously your journey in the coaching world has been really good. So,
Well, I'm a Michigan kid. I'm a product of Michigan high school football. Played my college football in Michigan, um, so and was blessed with the opportunity to coach at the Lions two different times. And so, yeah, I'm proud to be associated with that franchise.
yeah. And hey, listen, folks, pure Michigan, you got two of us on tonight. So, with that said, folks, all I want to pretty much let you know is what we have here is two Michigan guys is talking about Coach Bonamego's journey, that's for sure. So, with that said, let's go ahead and get this bad boy started. All we're going to do is talk about his background and all that. So, for all of you folks that want to learn a lot about Coach Bonamego, indeed, that's what we're going to try to do. So, we'll see what we have in the chat room, and then we'll be able to take questions as well. All right, Coach, let's start off with the fact that your coaching career began in 1987 and just recently ended with one head coaching stop at Central Michigan. What has been your favorite stop in pro and college?
Wow. Look, the CMU job was definitely a bucket list item. That was a goal of mine to be able to check that box and to you know be blessed to have the opportunity to run my own program.
Right.
It's hard to beat that. Um, every opportunity was really great in one way or another in many different ways. I always think of experiences that we have in life, not so much with the logo on the helmet or the colors, but the people that you get to work with. The buildings are all going to have the same stuff. Uh, they're all going to, at the end of the day, it's bricks and mortars and it's colors. It's the people that walk the halls in the building that make a place special. Um, Again, had an opportunity to work with some great head coaches, some great assistant coaches, and some tremendous players throughout my career. But as I look back on it, I'm really proud of the the people that we were able to lift up. One of my former assistants from Central Michigan was with me for 3 years. Just became the head coach at Michigan, Sharon Moore. So
Wow.
couldn't be more excited and proud of Sharon. Uh, we've got, one of my other assistants is the quarterback coach at Notre Dame. I've got a former player that's a running back coach at Wisconsin. My offensive line coach from Central is the line coach for the Cincinnati Bengals. Our secondary coach is at Pitt and has done really well, Archie Collins. Uh, and we still have 9 players that are on active rosters um, in the NFL. But it's not just the guys that made it to the NFL. It's the kids that did what they were supposed to do, that graduated, and that are leading successful and productive lives, that are have moved on and become great in their chosen field of endeavor, but more importantly, have become good fathers and husbands. Those are the things that I hang on to, that I look back on. Those are the people that when I'm able to be around them or hear from them, it means a great deal to me. And those are the relationships that are most important after my wife and kids, that are the most important to me, and the things that I hold in the highest regard and most dear.
Tell me highlight that you had over at Central Michigan University?
Well, I would say, winning a share of the MAC West on my first year, uh, certainly, beating Oklahoma State on a last play of the game. Contested, be it may it have been, it was still something that happened. And it was the first time in a very long time that Central Michigan had been beaten a ranked opponent. I think Oklahoma State, Okie State was in the top 20 that year, 2016, uh, and really, really probably running out of the tunnel the very first game as a head coach. I think it was a moment of a great deal of pride. Um, had been something that I had been working towards my entire career, and I just really, again, was blessed to have had that opportunity and those memories now.
Yeah, that's interesting how you say that, because the one thing I've learned about being in the media for as long as I've been in is the fact that when you go out there, you meet so many different people, and then you never know where those relationships going to lead, whether it's a job or whether it's just the fact that I have a wonderful relationship with you that I've met through social media, through LinkedIn. So,
Sure.
and I know that as a coach, you have the same type of path, but just in a different way. So let me ask you, Sharon Moore,
Yep.
New Michigan Wolverines coach. Tell me a little bit about him. He's on your was on your staff. Now this guy's got he's on the biggest chair in the state of Michigan. How do you think he's going to do with the Michigan Wolverines?
I think he's going to do a great job. Sharon is definitely a one of a kind individual. He's exceptionally intelligent. He's a relationship builder. He uh, he cares about the people around him. Um, you know, again, very very passionate, detail oriented, hardworking grinder of a coach. This guy he was an offensive lineman at Oklahoma. You wouldn't know by looking at him today because you know he he's he's in a different body than he was when he was playing. But
Right.
that toughness, that tenacity, that pride, um, and his ability to connect with young people and get the very best out of them, um, get them moving in a similar direction. Will be paramount. He had a chance, the opportunity to prove himself this year uh, when Coach Harbaugh was suspended for those, the end of the season. I think that he had an opportunity and you know he shined. That's just like a young player getting in a game for the very first time, and you're kind of anxious to see what he's going to do, and the guy lights it up, and he meets or exceeds the expectations, and you see a star being born right in front of you. That's, I think, the entire country got an opportunity to see Sharon Moore on the biggest stage of his career, and he responded. But not only did he respond, that team, that staff responded along with him, and that's a testament to his character, his leadership, and his ability.
Yeah, well, let's face the reality. The man coached 6 games at arguably the most difficult time on the planet, and the way he was able to maintain the continuity with the players, and of course he stayed in contact with Jim Harbaugh. But
Correct.
let's face it, he was in a Power Five conference with the all-time winningest program, and he was able to go out there and keep them undefeated. And I know that when they were looking for hires, I thought he was a no-brain internal hire.
Yep.
And
And
that's
yeah,
okay. They didn't hire him. I was hoping they'd hire Lance Stevenson from Kansas, but back to Sharon Moore. This was a no-brain hire. I'm glad Michigan went in that direction.
yeah. Well, Lance Leipold would have been a great
Oh,
hire as
Leipold was the guy. Was
well. Yeah, I mean, and I think when I was preparing to interview for the Central Michigan job, Mike Sherman spent a lot of time with me. I worked with Coach Sherman in Green Bay. And, Coach Sherman has been a head coach at the high school level, he's been a head coach at the NFL level at Green Bay Packers, he's a head coach at Texas A&M. So, tradition rich programs. And he's also a head coach in the CFL.
Right.
And I remember interviewing with Coach Sherman and him saying, when I interviewed for Green Bay, it seemed like it took forever. It was the
Right.
most comprehensive and detailed interview process I'd ever been through. I met with him first at the Senior Bowl for about 4 hours over breakfast, although I don't remember really eating anything. And that was just more. Um, I wouldn't call it small talk because it was definitely guided. It was specific. He wanted to kind of know about me, my family, my coaching philosophy. Uh, at the end of that, he flew me up to Green Bay the following weekend, and I presented to the entire staff. All six phases of special teams, and you know, at the end of that first sit down before I went up to Green Bay, he mentioned to me, he said, John, he goes, you're gonna have to forgive me if I'm taking my time with this, but I feel that the most important thing I do as a head coach of the Green Bay Packers is hiring staff, and that really resonated with me. And I kind of thought about my own career and different staffs that I've been on. I've been on numerous by the time I interviewed for Green Bay, but I was still a relatively young coach, and you know, I really started to think about things, and I realized that it's about the people that you surround yourself with. The head coach can't be in all places at all time. Now you're
Right.
the ultimate, you know, the buck stops with you. Ultimately, you're responsible for every single thing that takes place, good and bad, in that
Mhm.
program. But you have to surround yourself people that are competent people people that are competent, that are trustworthy, that are going to be loyal, um, that are going to tell you the truth, uh, and that have the skill set to perform the duties that you need them to do. And so they got to be recruiters. They got to be able to, great technicians. Not everybody has to be the best X and O guys, but
Mhm.
you have to certainly, when you put together that staff, you got to have your guys that are good idea guys, X and O guys. You have to have a good blend of guys that are excellent recruiters, because that's the lifeblood of any program, is the
Right.
talent that you're able to assemble. And then you have to have people that can work well together.
Right.
Sean Payton used to say that as well. He said that there has to be a synergy within your staff. That the quality of staff is really measured by how well they can collaborate together. That you'd rather have a group that works together, uh, that are maybe not. Uh, if that group can work better, they're going to do a better job than a collection of all stars that can't work together.
Well, I'll say this. Lance Leopold will have a statue before it's all said and done at Kansas. And number two, that's just my prediction. And number two, Sharon Moore did a great job hiring his staff, knowing that a lot of them departed for different jobs, and Jim Harbaugh snapped a couple of them to go into the
Sure.
NFL. So,
And look, those guys have a lot of similarities. I got the opportunity to get to know Coach Leipold, Lance, very, very well.
right.
Um, it just so happened, his first year at Buffalo was my first year at Central Michigan. So when you go to the MAC meetings, the very first year, they take all the new coaches, which was only the two of us prior to that 2015 season, and they have some separate meetings that they need you to attend. So, Coach and I got a chance to connect there. We've always stayed in touch, and he's another guy that I just think very highly of, and you know, wish him well, and I try to stay in touch with him as well.
You know what we'll have to do with that? With that said, okay, I know you have a coach's show with one of our colleagues, Bo. Well, you and I need to get Coach Leipold on here so that you guys can talk about it. And I think that's something we'll see if we can work on for a future episode. So, with that said, okay, They talk about Leopold. What special teams? That's your specialty, right? So, you, why did you stay with special teams instead of take other assistant jobs with other position
Well,
groups?
that's a great question, Scott. And, I think it, special teams definitely wasn't something that I set out to do. Um, Early in my career, in fact, my second year as a graduate assistant, I was at the University of Maine, and um, I was just out of college, and we had a coaching change, and we hired a guy by the name of John Baxter. Now, Coach Baxter is
Right.
currently at Fresno State. He was actually on Bo and I's show today, and
Mhm.
Coach Bax at that time was a very young coach. We're only a few months apart, but he had just finished being a graduate assistant at Arizona for Jim Tomey, and prior to that, he had been a graduate assistant at Iowa State. And what John Baxter was a man that was well ahead of his time. He was a young authority on special teams. He kind of took me under his wing, and I developed a passion for it, but also found it an area that at that point in time, not a lot of people had specialized in. So, I kind of made it a mission of mine. When Coach Baxter left for greener pastures, I became the special teams coordinator at University of Maine, and then from there went to Lehigh and then Army. And it's kind of just one of those things when if when you're good at something or if someone perceives you to be good,
Mhm.
it's hard. It's a hard thing to get out of, and um, it led to an opportunity in the NFL and a career and a life that I, you know, could never really truly have imagined myself for myself. Um, and I was fortunate that I was able to accomplish that goal of being a head coach from the special teams realm, which isn't easy to do. There's not a lot of there haven't been a lot of coaches that have been able to transition from special teams to being a head coach. Typically, that falls on guys that are you know offensive or defensive coordinators. Although I felt like there were a lot of reasons why. Um, and there were a lot of parallels to my responsibilities as a special teams coordinator that directly paralleled with the responsibilities of a head coach, not just on game day, but with the preparation of the team, the game management situation. You're aware of the entire roster. You're always evaluating the roster, and being a special teams coach as long as I was at the different stops that I've had, gave me an opportunity to watch a lot of really outstanding coaches coach. You know, and yeah, I mean, I was at least able to convey that, get myself an interview, and won out on the interview. I think it definitely helped that I was an alumni and was very passionate for the institution and the program, and it worked out.
Now, the amazing part about it is, for me, I've looked at special teams as the most underrated position on the field as well as coaches because I've always thought, being in my time with the National Football League, a minimum of 2 to 3 games are lost. When you lose 2 or 3 games
Right.
as a special team, that's a one-way ticket
Well,
out
if
the
we
fight.
if we go back in the history of the league, um, the very first special teams coordinator in the NFL was Dick Vermeil, and for uh, and then it really kind of grew from there, just like anything else. For many years, I'm talking about like in the 1980s, late 70s, 80s, it really was kind of a developmental or introductory position on the staff. That was kind of, you hired a young coach to coach special teams, you groomed him until you felt like he was ready to have his own offense or defensive position. And what happened though, there were guys that got in that role that did very, very well, and then it kind of grew into this other thing, and then people started adding assistants. I came in the National Football League as an assistant under Larry Pasquale, and then I had an opportunity to work for Frank Gans Sr. for 2 years. That was all in
No
Jersey.
kidding. You
Yeah,
worked for Frank
yeah.
Gans, huh?
So I had two really outstanding mentors very early in my career in the NFL. And when I was in the NFL, when I came into the NFL in 1999, I think there was only one other team that had an assistant special teams coach. I think everybody else was like a one-man show. Well, you fast forward 5, 6 years, and everybody had one. And now it's everybody's got everybody other than Danny Smith, one of my good friends in Pittsburgh, who does an outstanding job. Danny's the only one-man show that's still in the league, and a lot of the teams now have like a quality control, or so they actually have three-man staffs in the league now. So it's been very interesting to say the least to watch the development of that role over the course of my career and where it is now. I'm again, you always look at the number of people that you're able to lift up. I'm proud to say that I've got at least about half a dozen guys that were assistants for me that had the opportunity to be coordinators on their own in the league. So again, we all want to lift as we climb. You want to. It's not just about you or me. It's the people that we can help along the way.
Well, I got a great comment in the chat room. I want to get to it. I'm not sure who the individual's name is. It's a certain ID, but I'm going to talk about it anyways. When you're good at something, when you're good, when you're good at something and perceived to be good at something, it is hard to get out of. Is the truest statement I've ever heard. So there you go.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Oh, great. Thank you. Yeah, so great comment in the chat room. I really appreciate that. And anybody that wants to go out there and put comments in the chat room,
The other part of that, and I don't mean to digress, Scott, is I
that's
really
okay.
enjoyed it. I really enjoyed coaching special teams.
Right.
There for several reasons. There wasn't anything, or there isn't anything in the area of special teams that
Right.
we can't relate directly back to offense or defense. Coverages are defensive schemes. Return schemes are offensive plays. Uh, shoot pass punt protection, especially in the NFL, it's like pass protection. And with the exception of the quarterbacks, you've got everybody on the team in your room every single day. Um, you have the opportunity, because you have that audience of the entire team. Your job is to echo the message of the head coach, his philosophy. You're able to do it in your own language and in your own specific way. But I can say that it was a job that was never ever boring. There's always challenges. There's always problems that you have to solve week in and week out, whether it's personnel, game planning, uh, you know, trying to, defeat a specific scheme, or, obviously in the NFL, it's so important that you understand matchups and how to, how to at least try to neutralize an opponent's best players. So I loved it. And, I love the relationship with the players and the other coaches. Those are the things, honestly, right now that I miss the most.
All right, we've identified the person in the chat room, and I'm very proud to say that I know this young lady. She's going to be a star in my organization, and she's making an incredible amount of progress so far. I can't wait to see how high her ceiling goes. Remember I told you about Kate H.
Yep.
Yeah, well, that's her. Okay, obviously you don't have the Morse code to figure out what you use for a username, but I don't need it to identify this little girl. I am proud of her. She just celebrated her 20th birthday. And she says, I also love what was said about lifting others up along the way. Scott sure knows something about doing that. Coach, I can't wait to get you on a show with this young lady. She is going to be a star in my system.
Well, you're going to get that as you help people. Shoot, Scott, you've helped me in this realm. I mean, this is I was not something I had a lot of experience with. A year ago, I think we were talking off, before we came on the show. Just we're closing in quickly on our 1 year anniversary here.
Yeah. Well, To me, this is unbelievable. Okay, you're the coach, and I'm the normally, but now I'm the coach, and you're the student, and you're very coachable. I had to put that out there. I apologize for nothing. Kate, thank you. You guys are amazing. Kate, you're amazing too, and Kate's just getting started. You're going to meet her one day, and she's one of my bright stars coming. So with that said, you've made a lot of moves throughout your career. So obviously you didn't have a problem moving, but how did you do it with that amount of stops?
Man, it's tough. I think that, there comes, look, you have to go find new cheese, right? I mean,
Right,
uh, y- those moves, some of them were by choice, a lot of them were by necessity. When you're on a
right,
staff and, like we were in 2002 and with Coach Coughlin and you know, uh, the organization moves on for the head coach, that typically means most of the staff that needs to go find work. And so I was able to end up in Green Bay. And I know when I asked Paulette to marry me, uh, she said, "I'm a Florida gal. I'm from born and raised here in Jacksonville. Just try to keep me where it's warm."
right,
And wouldn't you know, the first place we end up after Green Bay, or after, excuse me, after Jacksonville was Green Bay. And then, we're in Green Bay in 2005
right.
watching watching Hurricane Katrina ravage the city of New Orleans.
Yeah,
And she's like, "Gosh, I'm glad we're not there. Can you only imagine those poor people?" And in February of 2006, we're packing up and moving to New Orleans. So, really, it's your family that absorbs the brunt of
yeah,
all of that. Paulette was always the one that was, as the coach, you have a very narrow one. You take the interview hoping to get offered the job. You get offered the job. You accept the job. You go home. You pack up a suitcase and you're gone. And the spouse, your wife, you know, is left to get everything packed up, get the house sold, uh, get the kids transferred out of their old school into new schools, all of the things that go along with it. So it is, you know, people think it's a glamorous lifestyle.
right.
It's really not. It really is not. It's anything but that. My poor daughter ended up going to four different high schools. Uh,
Yeah,
so and I never would have wished that on anyone. She
right,
handled it like a champ. I think our kids are in a lot of ways, better off because they've had experiences that very few kids have had to the privilege or opportunity to experience. But there's tough times. I think the older they got, the more difficult it was to
yeah,
move. But you know, if you're in that profession, if you're in the coaching profession,
yeah,
you have to accept that that's just part of the job, especially the way things are going now, the way things are trending. Um, Nothing lasts forever, but that's especially true in in the coaching profession. And I'm just proud and very happy and very blessed and fortunate that we were always able to secure employment. We were always able to, get the next job. And, even though there are parts of it that are you know, are distasteful or not as fun, when you're in between jobs, when
right,
you get the call that you've got a new job, trust me, it's always a cause of celebration. There's only 32 NFL teams. That means
right.
there's only 32 jobs. And on any given year, you know, there's not many of them that open, so you just hope to have a chair when the music stops. And for us, fortunately, we were blessed and that we were able to do that.
Well, guess what, Coach? The chat room's starting to heat up. How do you like that? So I'm going to
That's
get to their
great.
comments
Sure.
real quick in a moment. But how many houses did you own, and how many did you rent?
Man, that's okay. We owned in the city of Jacksonville, we owned three homes and a condo.
Really?
That's three. That's three there. We bought in Green Bay. We bought in New Orleans. We did not buy in Miami. We had two rentals. We rented both times we were in Detroit. We bought in Mount Pleasant. I think it's like right around eight and eight. I think we had a total of like eight or nine houses that we've owned and eight or nine rentals.
All right, well, that's a lot. All right, let's go back to the chat room before I get way behind. Okay, number
Sure.
one, Joshua Burstein. You know him all too well.
Yeah.
All right, what's going on? Let's keep it going. Joshua Dorr here. You're my uncle in the furniture business. We'll keep it rolling. Once upon a time in Michigan, there really was a Joshua Dorr in the furniture business. So I'm not smart enough to make that up. I just lived it. Now, Joshua Dorr made a new friend today. Kate, AKA the little girl. What's going on? Yeah, she's my little girl, all right. I've never had a daughter, but she's the closest thing to it. Joshua Dorr has a question for you. How's the fishing been?
Honestly, Josh, thanks for asking. I haven't really been out that much recently. I've had a lot going on. No excuse. I've got spoiled. All right. I'm going to just tell you, I got spoiled. Went from frozen shrimp to live shrimp. And, I got to travel a little bit of distance to go get my live bait. Not too far, but got to go over the bridge to the other side of the intercoastal. And so I'm spoiled now. If I can't fish with live shrimp, I'm not shrimp. But I'm gonna throw a few lines in the water tomorrow night just for you.
Don't worry, Josh. He'll be back on Tuesday night, so you'll get your update then. Okay, so he's talking about you being a real estate module. Don't you feel like one when you go through all that?
Man, I wish I had gotten Paulette to get her real estate license. Um, if we could do a whole show, a whole episode, maybe an entire series just on on buying and selling, the do's, the don'ts, and unfortunately, I've learned a lot of hard lessons.
Don't worry, Coach. With the way you've improved, and I'm not bragging about it, but you and I can do these shows we want. I don't have a problem. I do me when you didn't know anything, but boy, makes a whole lot of difference that you do because now I feel like the fruits of my labor are working in you. I trained you, and I got a little girl here who's learning. So, anyways, let's keep it going. Let's keep it going here. So, with that said, Kate, hey Joshua, glad to be here. And then he's talking about need to get back out there. Okay, whatever. And now he wants to know if she'll be on the sports exchange later on. All right, so we're gonna continue to move on. We have some great stuff to roll, but before we do, I wrote a book called Lessons from the Microphone: Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. And guess what? The man across from me, Coach Bono, is in it. All right. So you can find this book available on Amazon, Kindle, and Barnes and Noble, as well as other places. So with that, Joshua got one, and of course Kate has one as well. Oh, don't worry, Coach. We're starting to get even more interesting now. All right, let's talk. Describe your what it was like to be a Super Bowl winner with the L.A. Rams.
Well, that was an odd year for me, Scott, because I was actually working from home in Florida. Um,
Okay.
that's again that's going to be a topic in the book, but
Okay.
well, it was a lot. Honestly, and I'm not embarrassed about it one bit, but it was a little bit bittersweet, because um, you know. My role changed from the 2020 season to 2021, and you know, it was probably early June. Coach McVay came into me at my office and said, "Look, with what you're doing, the projects that you're doing for us and stuff, you don't really have to be here." And he knew that we had just bought a house in here in Florida, and that I was kind of eyeing retirement. And he said, "You can, you don't have to be here physically." And so when he gave us that option, I went home and talked it over with Paulette. So we decided that, yeah, we would just go ahead and take that offer and move back to Florida. And so I did my work from home. You know, I had reports
Okay.
that I would do and submit. Um, and yeah, it was tough. You know, it was great that the team was doing so well, but at the same time, it was hard not being there every day. So um, there are other experiences that I've had throughout my career that I would still rank higher than that one just because of that fact.
Hey, coach, did you get a Super Bowl ring out of that?
I did not.
Really?
Yes. And
Wow.
this is the first time I've said that publicly.
Okay.
The hardest part for me, Scott, because, I am a competitor, was, there were so many people that, friends of mine that I've known over the years or colleagues that knew I was still with the organization, but didn't really understand the, uh, the nature of the relationship that I had with the organization and what my duties were. So it was very difficult when those congratulation texts started coming in
Yeah.
uh, to to know what to do with them. So I just simply didn't say anything. I said thank you, and I just kept on moving. But no, I do not have a Super Bowl ring.
So, in the back of your mind, are you bitter for not getting one, knowing that you put a full season in? Super Bowl rings are difficult to come by.
I don't think that you can ever be bitter about anything in life. I think that
Okay.
I think Nelson Mandela had a great quote, and he said that resentment is like drinking poison and expecting it to kill your enemies. Those feelings, those emotions, really um, they're counterproductive to who I am and what I stand for. I believe that. When if you carry around resentment, bitterness,
Okay.
the only person that suffers is you. You just continue to relive that pain over and over. The longer that the sooner that you're able to swallow that, separate yourself from it. Uh, Ultimately, it was my response. My
Right.
choice, and you know, uh, it was my choice. I think, yeah, was my hand forced a little bit? Yeah, but it still ultimately was my choice. So I stand by my decision, and I don't really have any regrets about that or anything else I've done in my life.
Okay. Fair enough. Joshua has a question. I have a few more things I want to get to before we wrap it up at the top of the hour, because obviously the Sports Exchange will be on my regular network. But he wants to know, do you watch any hockey at all?
Um, I'm not a big hockey fan. If I was to claim a team, it'd have to be the Red Wings.
Okay, there you go. You answered both questions. All right. So let's move on. What was the biggest thing you learned in your coaching career?
That is a great question. Because I feel like I learned a lot. I feel like I learned uh, every day. I'd say that the best lesson, and I learned it early on, is that as human beings, that we handle adversity a lot easier than we handle success. You know, I
Okay.
think I just saw a quote from Denzel Washington about when you reach the top, that's when you need to be the most on guard because that's when the devil comes for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's true. I think when our backs are against the wall, when
Mm-hmm.
you face adversity in your life or during a season or during a game,
Right.
uh, or you have a bad game, I think if you're worth your salt, if you have any pride, when your back's against the wall, you're going to come out. You're going to come out swinging. You're going to come out um, and be better the next time out. I think when you have success, I think it's human nature to relax and feel like um, you maybe have arrived. So the most important lesson that I learned coaching in the NFL, which is a very unforgiving, high performance business, was that you can never, ever, ever afford to relax. You have to, you know, be certain whether you win or you lose
Mm-hmm.
that you dot every I, that you cross every T, and that you absolutely bring your A game every single day to every facet of 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 your preparation and your performance.
You know what, Coach? I got to tell you, that's why you and I get along so well. Number one, you're only 9 months younger than I am, so we're practically the same age. But I thrive on adversity. The more pressure I get, the more I really enjoy doing it. I don't know. Maybe being in the media business so long, when you're accustomed to deadlines on a regular basis, makes you a lot stronger. Or when you have the live button, know that I expect everything I do to be excellent and won't tolerate anything from that. Kate's learning that as well. She's not learning it the hard way. She just embraces it. For somebody 20 years old, Kate is embracing things on a slow life, slow basis. But I love adversity. I don't know how I could live my life without it, to be honest with you.
Well, it's going to come for all of us, whether you want it to or not. So you have to be prepared for it and just have a plan with how you're going to deal with it.
Right.
Um, it helps to have people in your life that you trust and love and believe in, that have your back.
That's true. Three more questions, I think, four, depending if there's a follow up. On June 18th, 2015, you were diagnosed with tonsil cancer. What was your going through your mind when you were diagnosed with it?
Well, again, we go back to the adversity. So there you go, bang, right? Get my first head coaching opportunity, and about 3 months in, a cancer diagnosis. The thing that I don't know if everybody realizes is, but that's not something that happens quickly. You know, when you start having warning signs and you go see your doctor, um, they they've got to rule everything out first.
Right.
So it can take weeks, months before you find out what you're dealing with.
Right.
In my case, it was accelerated, so it was about 3 weeks. But you know, the first thing that popped in my mind was my family. I
Right.
got to go see my family. I was actually in Detroit, Scott, uh, in a high school parking lot, getting ready to go speak to about 300 high school football players from all across the country at the Sound Mind, Sound Body football camp. And that, I got the phone call, and, I had to tell one of my assistants that, you know, that I just, I can't do this. I have an emergency. I got to go home right now. So,
Right.
uh, and then and then the next thing you want to do is educate yourself. You
Right.
want you have a million questions. Your family,
Right.
is this thing treatable? What's the treatment protocol? How fast can I start?
Right.
How's this going to affect me? In my case, I was very fortunate that I would get selected for a clinical study at the University of Michigan. So I had the very best team of doctors that I could possibly have. Um, and I made an announcement very early that I was going to coach the season. And uh, I had I have a great wife that was, extraordinarily supportive, and I had a great staff that really was encouraging and was helped to, take up the slack. But yeah, again, probably the single greatest challenge I've had in my life. And
Hmm.
I really never thought about the other side of the coin, which was the downside of it. I kind of looked at it as we have another opponent on our schedule. That's how I presented it to my
Right.
team.
Okay.
This is one that I've got to beat. But I'm going to be here, and I appreciate you guys. And I didn't really was in a position where I had worked my entire career to get to that spot, and nothing was going to stop me from coaching the team or coaching in that first game. And you know, uh, we did it. We made it through. It wasn't easy, and I wouldn't have made it through without, again, the without having Paulette with me, my family with me, and my staff and players. And the other part with me was the team. The message was, you know, our opponents don't care. They
Right.
may have empathy, but when we kick the ball off and the game starts,
That's
They're
true.
not going to care what your coach is going through.
Right.
I'll handle this. You guys take care of business on the field and
Right.
prepare like you want to play. And that was it. We didn't really get talked about much after that.
Well, it's amazing. I was going to ask you that same thing about family. So I'm assuming that your family handled it really well, and they were probably your strength to get you through the ordeal.
They certainly will. Uh, our kids, kids will kids will always take their clues or their cues on how they react uh, from their parents. If they see mom and dad get really emotional or upset, or
Right.
uh, they're they're gonna follow suit. They're gonna
Right.
they're gonna see those signals. So Paulette and I were very, very deliberate that if we were going to have difficult discussions, that we were going to do those in private, behind
Hmm.
closed doors, away from, away from the kids, where our kids could see us. So
Right.
I think we did a very good job of that, and she did a very good job of, because they didn't. Again, it's football season. They don't see me
Right.
during the day. You know, they see her. She's the one that interacts with them 99% of the time when you're coaching. So, she gets all the credit for for maintaining that front,
Right.
for uh, you know for uh, even if she had doubts, she never showed it. She never put it on display for anyone.
I'll bet Paulette had to be impressed that once you licked cancer, and folks, for those of you individuals dealing with cancer, okay, Coach John Bonamego is an inspiration for all of those out there. And I do have a mention of for my book, okay, Lessons from the Microphone, of him talking about his cancer ordeal. And we did another show as well with the Tribune. But I'll bet Paulette had to be happy that you ended up going back into coaching because, after all, that's a sign of victory that you were able to go back to a very highly stressful job. You got that ordeal out of the way and you went back into coaching.
Well, yeah. Well, I didn't go back, Todd Scott. I never stopped.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
Pardon me.
It just
Okay, he never went back, but he stopped. I'm going to remember that one.
yeah,
Okay, continue
yeah,
on.
yeah, I never stopped. I didn't step away. I mean, the only
Okay,
thing that changed, my treatment protocol required me to travel from Mount Pleasant to
okay,
Ann Arbor 5 days a week. I went through, it was, believe it was 7 weeks of chemo and 6 weeks of radiation. And
okay.
that was Monday through Friday. They give you the weekends off. So
Mm.
I was in the early, I wanted to be in the uh, first appointment. So they start uh, radiation treatments at 7 a.m. So I was in Ann Arbor by 7 a.m. and it's about a 2 hour and 15-minute drive.
Right.
Uh, Fortunately, I had an army of graduate assistants that assumed that duty. They would,
Okay.
whoever's turn it was would pick me up at 4:30 a.m. We'd drive to Ann Arbor. Radiation would take about 20 minutes, and then we're back on the road back to Mount Pleasant. And I was in my office by 8:30, 9 o'clock. You know,
Okay.
Mondays were a long day because Mondays is when I got my chemo, and that typically was about
Right.
2 to 3 hours to do that on top of the radiation. So, um, yeah, man, I think uh, we're all human. I think you'd be surprised. I think everybody out there would be surprised when you really have to do something what you're capable of.
Yeah, that's amazing how you were able to provide clarity there because that's right. If you're off on the weekends, you could be on the sidelines coaching your team. But
Yeah,
when
well, I finished it timed up where I was done. I was done. I think my treatments overlapped with about the first 2 weeks of training camp. So I was
okay,
done. I had doctor's appointments that I'd have to,
right,
go down, and, gradually over those become
right.
spaced out further and further. But, we're at least as the head coach, you set the schedule. So,
Yeah.
that was the one benefit that I had going for me.
Yeah, well, nevertheless, the main thing is you stayed with it and you were able to adjust things accordingly. And the reality is, you're a coach. Not only were you able to coach on the field, but I'm sure probably you're able to coach and set a good example for your students how to deal with something like this for sure. So I'm glad you provided clarity. Just let everybody know this is the Motor City Mad Mouth show. My name is Scott Morganoff, Motor City Mad Mouth. Pleased to be joined by Coach John Bonamego. Not only is a cancer survivor, he's a heck of a coach. And I got to tell you one thing, though, Coach. Anytime I get a special team situation, I always put it on inside the pigskin just because I know it's right up your alley, is what it is. So just so
Well,
you know, I
you
don't
know,
have any special
I
teams
love to
topics
talk.
tonight.
I love to talk ball and I love to teach. Those are the two things that, you know, the number one passion in my life is my wife, but after that, it's football.
I totally understand. Get you. Two more questions before we wrap it up tonight. First of all, these days mental health is a problem in sports and everywhere. What's your take on this? Because I know in team sports, if you have to take a mental health break, teams are very supportive of that,
You
and
know, I
it's
think
something that really needs to be addressed more.
that's a great question, Scott. Uh, I would say, when you're a first time head coach, there's so many things that you just can't possibly, you know, prepare for. There's so many different things that come across your desk, but the number one thing that was surprising for me was the number of young men that I had the privilege of working with that
Right.
would come to see me or one of their assistant coaches because they were struggling with,
Wow.
with something, whether it was depression or whatever. They had something going on at home. Um, it was surprising. It was encouraging because they were coming forward. Um, I think we have taken tremendous strides in this area. Um, I attribute them coming forward with the amount of education that's out there now.
Right.
Um, we have we have dramatically reduced the stigma that goes along with uh, you know
Right.
with that. And I think, as men, especially you look at a group of young men that are playing a sport like football, they're prideful. They've got a certain amount of bravado that's necessary to to play and be successful in that sport.
Right.
And so, especially those young men, you know, it, as men, and would talk about this with my team frequently.
Right.
We wanted to be very intentional with it because, you know, everybody at some point in their life is going to go through something, and you can't be afraid to ask for help. And it's kind of contradictory to our nature as men. We want to internalize everything. We feel like we don't need help, that we can work this out with ourselves. But the truth is, you can't and you
Right.
shouldn't. You're not going to, you know, you break your leg, you're not going to set it, yourself. You're going to go to a doctor and get it set, get the bone set, get a cast put on it. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
So I would encourage guys that look, there's a lot of resources readily available to us. We don't have to know, but if we can help you, guide you, please come tell us. You're a stronger man, a better man, uh, and a much more courageous man uh, if you can ask for help than you are if you try to deal with it on your own. And I think that's just a message for anybody, man. Man, if you're feeling a certain way, things aren't right, you know, get yourself some help. It's something that is treatable. It's a diagnosis. It's not a sentence. And there's a lot of ways we've come a long way in that area, but there's still a long way to go. And I'm glad you asked that question. Thank you, Scott.
Well, you couldn't have put it any better. Quick question from the chat room, and I have one or two more that we'll have to get going. Well, obviously, our goals be out by 9 o'clock, but obviously, we don't shortchange any important thing that anybody can learn from. Well, Coach, what's your favorite level to coach?
Man, that's a great question and one that I find very difficult to answer because I feel like I really enjoyed every level. I started off as a high school coach, uh, coached at the college level and the professional level. I think there's a lot to be said about being at the very top of the pinnacle of your profession. So there are very few things in life that can compare to uh, you know taking the field as an NFL coach or player and knowing that you're at the very pinnacle. It's the elite. There's no higher level. Uh, that said, I very much enjoyed the mentoring aspect of coaching, and I feel like uh, what the impact that you're able to have on young people as a college coach and a high school coach is very, very profound. Um, in a day and age where things are becoming more transactional, I think uh, having the ability to be transformational to you know it, shoot, we had John Baxter on today. He said it best. If you coach a kid for 4 years and the only thing that you've talked about is football, or the only thing that you can talk about is football, then you've had a very shallow life. You want to be able to pour into and dive into those young men's lives. They come from all different types of backgrounds, and you get that to a lesser degree in the NFL. In the NFL, it's more about teaching them what it is to become a professional. I still have outstanding relationships with a lot of players that I coached in the NFL, but it's a little bit different. Uh, it's more of a uh, it's more of a brothers type of mentorship where the coach with college kids. I think that's more of a true mentor uh, true mentor relationship where it's very satisfying to watch a young man come into your program, at 17, 18 years old, watch him grow and develop in every aspect of his life. Obviously athletically, physically, but also spiritually, intellectually, socially, and uh, you know, have them lead your program and go out and lead successful, productive lives is, whatever their chosen endeavor is, and knowing that you had maybe hopefully a small part in giving them a good example of what a husband and father should look like.
All right, I'll just mention one comment by Kate. Coaches shape kids, no question about it. And we'll get you out on this final question. Obviously, I saved the easiest ones for last and the quickest ones, but do you have the desire to get back in coaching, and what are you doing these days?
Well, I miss it tremendously. What I think I miss most, though, is the relationship with the players and the rest of
Right.
the staff. There's probably a lot of things that I don't miss. Currently, I'm employed as in business development with BSN Sports, which is the largest athletic equipment and apparel company in the country. Uh, I'm part of the Pro Select division, so I get to interact frequently with a lot of my friends and colleagues in the NFL. Uh, just came back from Chicago last week, where I was uh, blessed to have the opportunity to be at the NBA Equipment Managers
Wow.
Show. Held it at Harry Carey's, which is also houses the
Okay.
Chicago Sports Hall of Fame. Got to meet all of those guys. Didn't have many people, didn't know many guys in the NBA, but the athletic world is it's small. Really great group of guys. Um, I'm in constant communication with a lot of agents, helping players do their camps, uh, providing goods and services for their philanthropics. So there's, you know, it's a very satisfying role, something that I'm figuring out as I go and I'm growing in, and I'm enjoying it a great deal. Probably the biggest bonus is I get to work from home and be a pain in Paulette's butt for 24 hours a day rather than just 12 hours
All
a
right.
day.
Well, you know what, Coach? I'm glad you're on my team on the broadcast side. I want to thank you very much for being on the Motor City Mad Mouse show. And of course, we're proud to be a customer of BSN as well. So we're able to display our merchandise as well. So Coach John Bonamego can be seen on Inside the Pigskin on the South Florida Tribune Broadcasting Network. So if you go to our YouTube channel, South Florida Tribune, feel free to subscribe. You get Coach. Meanwhile, thank you very much for joining us, Coach. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Great job tonight. I know you certainly probably, in fact, I know that you impacted a lot of people tonight, Coach. Thank you so much
I
for being here.
appreciate it, Scott. Thank you for having me. It's always great to see you, and thanks to everybody out there on the chat room. Chat room, you guys had a lot of great questions. I appreciate you, your contributions and your participation.
Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. We'll have another episode next week, so stay tuned. Good night, everybody.